Hi class, my name is Shelby Harris and this is my video response in regards to the chapter Or of the Press, which details Supreme Court Justice Potter Stewart, who served as a justice in the 1960s and 70s, and specifically his interpretation of the First Amendment and the importance of distinguishing the freedom of press versus the freedom of speech clauses. He suggests in the text that the text provides the answer. The press is the only industry to be singled out by the Constitution for special protection. He argues that the press as an institution provides a vital role, becoming the fourth estate, which in turn provides a checks and balances for the three branches of government, the judicial, executive, and legislative branches. These institutions enjoy a place in the constitutional structure, which is comparable to the actual institutions set up by the Constitution. Tension comes from understanding what rights individual reporters have compared to institutions, and that's both at the federal and the state level. There were many protections for journalists in regards to like individual shield laws for particular states, in which Idaho doesn't have any, and then also like what their protections are at the Supreme Court level or at the federal level. I really liked when Justice Stewart was quoted for saying, "I'll know it when I see it," in regards to obscenity. I think that statement speaks volumes as to how we can interpret what particular things are considered obscene and not. Controversy came as well over publishing the Pentagon Papers. This was supposed to, basically these documents may or may not have been stolen, but he approved them being publicly published. I think that the chapter could have spent more time explaining why individuals are protected under the freedom of speech and industries are protected under the freedom of press clauses, but his views do end up falling in line with Madison's in the fact that there should be an individual branch. There should be three individual branches of government, and the press should, in his words, establish contest, not its resolution. I think that that is kind of relative to the reading that we had from Garrett Epps earlier in the semester, that the freedom of press or institutions are the only protected institution by that clause. Ethically, we are forced to analyze that every citizen ethically, we are forced to analyze that as every citizen, reporters don't have the right to refuse information to a grand jury. For example, if you think about a person that knows somebody else who may have committed a crime such as murder or something along those lines, and that person refuses to identify the person who committed that crime, then they are either held in contempt or even charged with like interfering or obstructing justice. So it's interesting to understand that individuals aren't protected under freedom of speech in particular instances, and that also applies to individual journalists rather than the institution in its entirety. A modern example would be like Vanessa Leggett. She was jailed over 6 months for refusing to reveal her sources in a Texas Supreme Court. She was writing a book about a murder in Houston, and rather than revealing her sources, she served, I think, like 165 days in jail, which is, a pretty decent amount of time for a journalist. For the class, I think that a question we should pose is, as freedom of the press is guaranteed to institutions, why isn't there a larger push to have the rights of individual journalists protected? For instance, basically the reporter's privilege. If their institution is protected, why isn't it that the journalists are protected themselves? I think that protection should, like Zach, our professor, mentioned, kind of be reciprocated through to the lower level. And then for Zach, my question is, if there are instances where the press is not protected to publish particular documents, or if they do, and there's no protections in that particular instance, what repercussions follow? Or what are some of the instances? What can journalists end up being charged for, or how do they determine repercussions in that particular instance? But other than that, guys, it's been a long week for me. I appreciate you taking the time to view this video, and go ahead and post any questions or responses to the questions in the comments below. Thanks for watching.